Good morning, everyone. My name is Jun Beck. Thank you for joining our Data Values community meeting today. We are excited to have you participate. We want to engage and add your voice and experiences to this insightful and action-oriented conversation on data and youth. I'll begin introducing myself. My name is Jun Beck. I am a data values advocate at the Data Values Project. I also co-founded an organization called Youth for Privacy, which advocates for data privacy for young people. And over the past couple of months, as a data value advocate, a lot of us have been coming together, hosting these kind of meetings to make sure that to get these data value project campaign up and running and let other people know what those data values are. It is clear that young people play an active role in today's digital world, generating a substantial amount of data. Yet they're rarely given a voice on how this data is collected and used. This must change. Young people needs, priorities, and experiences are unique, and their voices should be captured in data collection and use. This is why we are here today, to discuss, engage, and hear from various young people about the issues and challenges they face when it comes to data and data protection. Today, the Data Values community session will be one of many over the year, which are intended to explore topics and issues related to data values and how the Data Values Manifesto ensures that the data does not harm or exclude, but rather empowers. We continue to encourage all of you to join us, engage, or even reach out to us to co-host an upcoming community session meeting. Before we share what is in the agenda for today, we want to begin with understanding of where you all are on some key issues when it comes to data protection. Please log into the Slido using the image on the screen or by clicking the link in the chat, and then you can complete the questions. So I'll give people a couple of minutes so that they can fill out the chat, the questions. So there are about 3 questions in the Slido. First, in one word, what does data protection mean to you? Second, in a few words, why is it important for young people to have a say in data processes? And then finally, in a few words, what does having control over your data look to you? While you do those Slido questions, we will do some basic introduction on the agenda. So while everyone takes a few minutes to complete these questions, I want to share you about today's agenda and a few housekeeping items. We have an exciting agenda packed with engaging discussions and speakers. First, we will begin with a short presentation on data protection. Then we will hear young leaders and activists working across sectors on the importance of youth voices in data. And after that, we will leave some time for any questions or comments you may have. And finally, we will share a few upcoming data values campaign updates and the engagement opportunities. We really look forward to have an interactive discussion and hearing from you about your ideas, experiences, and insights. So, before we get to the polling responses, we also have some housekeeping materials. One, this session will be recorded and shared online. 2, a live transcript is available for this session if you would like to have this turned on. 3rd, please make sure that if you speak a little more slowly to help everyone follow your comments. 4th, as we have a lot of people with us today who would like to share their experiences, please raise your hand to come and keep your comments short and concise. And then finally, please use the chat to communicate and share your ideas and questions anytime. Okay, with that out of the way, let's take a look at their responses on the Slido. Let's see. So the first question. In one word, what does data protection mean to you? Okay. It wasn't some words being tossed around include safety, responsibility, freedom from abuse, digital human rights. Next words. In a few words, why is it important for young people to have a say in data processes? To experience early, to make sure there's some sense of representation, not subject to misuse, inclusion, ownership, and long-term consequences. Those are the responses that we had. Let's move on to the final question. What does having control over your own data mean to you? Okay, we have a couple of other responses. Transparency, share or block my personal information, sovereignty, free access, securing data, trust in the data that you share, you opt in when requested, notification when there's a leak. Okay, so in terms of these kind of responses, I think they're very there's a huge consensus regarding what people expect of their data. Finally, we have some other person saying inclusion in data and decision making. And I think that a lot of these sentiments expressed at the poll are very reflective of what the Data Value Manifesto is about. So I'll move on to a short presentation detailing data protection and youth voices. And then I go through what is in the Data Values Manifesto and link how the manifesto can help young people in advocating for data protection. So let's get started. So as I said before, there are a lot of young people on the internet. One study shows that about more than 50 to 60% of all the internet users are under 35. So young people power and fuel the internet. And as all of us know, young people are the ones driving the internet culture. They're the ones making memes. They're the ones making TikTok videos. They're making viral content. They're ones that keep the engine of internet running. So in a sense, youth culture resides on the internet. The flip side of that is that there are so many of data being collected among young people on the internet. Regardless of the platform you've been using, regardless of what kind of tools or what kind of things you like to do on the internet, as a young people, it means that we are overrepresented in the internet users because we love internet so much. But that also means a lot of our data is also on the internet. And for a lot of these cases, people might not even know about the issues of data protection, or they might actually be victims of data leaks and vulnerabilities. So going to the next slide, some of the headlines that I scrapped are really a lot of the vulnerabilities that the young people face when it comes to data protection online. So going from left to right, the one on the left, Optus, how a massive data breach exposed Australia. And the one on the right, hacker steals government ID database for Argentina's entire population. Those are cases of data breaches that affect the whole of society. But as I said before, since young people are overrepresented in these kind of internet users and data sites, that would affect young people the greatest. The one on the top, school kids are falling victims to disinformation and conspiracy fantasies. As young people spend a lot of time online, that also makes us vulnerable to misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories online. The one in the middle, Washington State University warns data breach may have hit students and employees. Even the communities that we trust, for example, our universities, our schools, the data data that we give to those kind of institutions that we're part of, that we trust, they might not be the responsible stewards for our data. And as a lot of these kind of headlines show, schools and universities are especially vulnerable when it comes to data protection. And on the bottom, the Surgeon General warns that social media may harm children and adolescents. So, of all the gist of all these headlines is that you face danger in the internet, and that it also shows that not only we are the major participants of data protection, but also means that we need to be a major stakeholder as well. We are as exposed, and even not more exposed, to the risk of not having adequate data protection. So we need to we have a stake in this, and we need to take action. So before we get started on what kind of actions to take, let's look at how do we want our data to be used? And I have some interesting anecdote to share. So as I said before, also co-founded a NGO called Youth for Privacy. And in that organization, we've been educating young people on data privacy and basic cybersecurity skills. And in our workshops, before I was actually selected as one of the data values advocates, I attended one of the data values projects course workshops. And they actually gave me this, I don't know if you can see this, but they gave me a playing card called Demanding a Fair Data Future. And it is a set of interactive materials. It's like a set of cards. And they ask people okay, what do you want a fair data future to look like? So for this card, to me, a widespread data confidence looks like XYZ. And these are ways for young people to have conversation starting in data. So I went to their workshop and I loved it. I went to Karen, who was one of the person in the data analysis project, and I asked her, oh, could I have all of these? I want a lot of these cards because they're so effective that I would love to use them in my workshop that we've been hosting. And I've been using them at the Youth for Privacy's workshops since last April. And I think the results are amazing, because the key aspect of the Data Values Manifesto is that it really distills how young people think about how they want their data to be used and handled. And they are very effective in engaging in those kind of conversations. So the manifesto has about 5 data points, 5 data values they want to highlight. So these are all the 5 of them. 1, support people to shape how they're represented in data. 2, invest in public participation for accountability. 3, democratize data skills and for greater equality. 4, create cultures of transparency, data sharing, and use. And finally, fund open and responsive data systems so that all people share in the benefits of data. So the Data Values Manifesto is a good tool to create a framework and a conversation among young people of how they want their data to be used and what kind of value system should be the basis of that, however data protection system they want. So I highly encourage you to check out our manifesto, take a good look at it, and then try to see how you might utilize these points, these values within your community to talk about data protection. So, okay, now that you're equipped with the data values, how are you going to make actual change? Well, there could be various advocacy routes that you could take. For example, one of the things I did is that I actually tried to take it to the United Nations. For example, participating in various UN forums. Since I basically mostly reside in New York City, that has been a thing that's possible. You don't have to take it to UN. You could take it to your local governance boards. You could take it to your local school boards. You could take it to your school, even your school clubs. And then whatever community you want to live in, you are part of, you could always bring these kind of topics of data protection to your organizations. And I did the same when I was a student. before I graduated, I would like bring up these conversations of data protection and pass amendments or resolutions in my student council and my student club so that we will have some sense of guidance on how to regulate and how to handle student data. So you don't have to dream big. You can start very small. Think of the clubs you're at work. Think of student government you are at school. There are all these like little low-hanging fruits that you could get started to make sure that like have these conversations going on data protection. And then gradually, once you have a buy-in from people in your community, then you could start pushing for bigger change. So yeah. And finally, like our community of the data values community are also here to help you. And if there's like allies and partners that you want, we are here to help you to make sure that you could push these agendas forward. So speaking of partnerships and allies, we will move on to the panel discussion. So I am delighted to turn to our panelists for their thoughts and youth voices and protection. So we have 4 youth leaders and activists around the world who will share their perspectives on the importance of data values, youth voices, and data protection. And I'll go ahead and introduce them all. So we are joined by Mayuri. She is a data values advocate. Mayuri is a writer and gender activist from India. She works on gender sanitization with communities through action research, which has led her to be curious about data from margins. She's keen to bring knowledge of language, gender, caste, and ethnicity from the margins to the mainstream. She's a Marathi gender and sexuality educator with a master's in literature from Mumbai University. Next, we have Vipana, a youth activist and leader. Vipana is a young change maker from Nepal. She is enthusiastic about quality education, youth empowerment, and rural community development. She is the founder of the Learning Fortress, an initiative that creates non-formal teaching and learning environments in rural communities of Nepal. Third, you have Yazid. He is a policy advocate, data scientist, storyteller, and social development professional from Kaduna State, Nigeria, committed to increasing awareness and action on data literacy and use from the community to national levels. And finally, we have Jimena, Senior Youth Coordinator at Restless Development. She is based in Costa Rica and is passionate about data, power, and inclusion. At Restless Development, Jimena leads work on the We Lead program, focusing on SRHR for young women and girls. So welcome, and thank you again for joining us. To kick things up, we'll start with Jimena. So the one question I wanted to ask you, Jimena, is that Restless Development is a global organization aimed at leveraging the collective power of young people to change the world. In this regard, how does Restless ensure the engagement of young people in advocating for online safety and data protection?
Hi June. Hi everyone. So nice to be here and be able to share with this amazing panel today. Um, so I think I want to focus on a few things that I think Restless does, especially that things that go aligned with what you were saying, June, about the data values manifesto. So Restless, at Restless, we value a lot accountability and transparency. And I think everything that we do has to do with supporting youth and youth power overall, and shifting power towards young people so that they can actually advocate for themselves and for the things they need. Uh, I wanted to mention a few things that we do. First of all, at Restless, we have one of our values is dynamic accountability, which means that we value radical transparency um, and getting feedback from the communities that we work for. And I think why is this important? Because also when we engage with young people in any of the projects that we have, um, we provide them with tools for youth-led accountability. And the youth-led accountability means, and these are resources that are all online on our website, and I will share with them. I will share them in the chat talk, so that you can go and if you're interested, you can see at all of these resources. As the youth-led accountability means that young people are getting all the information and the support they need, um, hold others accountable for their actions. And this includes things about data protection and online safety as well. Um, a part of what we do. And then the other big thing that I wanted to talk about was youth-led research, which is also a big part of what Restless does in different kinds of projects all over the globe. Um, we do them at We Lead for sexual and reproductive health and rights, but we have also done youth-led research on how COVID affected activists all around the world, for instance. Um, and we just did a big research called the State of the Youth Civil Society report. I will also leave you the link on the chat. It's very interesting. Um, so on all of these research that we do, we always engage with young people from the countries that we are interested in, um, and we support them in doing the research in their communities. And why is this important? Because when we talk about youth voices and data, we need to make sure that youth is actually represented, and not only represented, but they are the ones doing all of the steps. Like we need to make sure that we are providing them with all of the tools to understand how data is processed, how data is storage, what tools we are using, for instance, online when we do surveys or uh, when we answer things online, for instance. So um, by engaging with young people that are not necessarily people who have a lot of experience with research and providing them with those tools, we are also making sure that these young people and the young people that they are engaging with in their communities, at the same time, they're learning about data and data protection and safety and like all of those resources that are needed to really understand when you go online, like what happens to that data that you're giving everyone. So I think those lines are very important for us. Those things are very important for Restless. Um, and then just to mention a few things, I do encourage everyone to go check out the State of the Youth Civil Society report 2023 that just came out yesterday. Because what another thing that we do at Restless and that we value is actually um, how do I say this? Like in the research that we do, like the findings that we do, the findings that we have from our research, making sure that we bring it to the world because they have so much insights on what's going on. Um, so on this report that I'm talking about, we focus on young feminist movements from around the world. And a big thing that came out in this report is that the young feminists doing the work everywhere in the world, they are facing a very toxic online environment where they're facing online harassment, where they're facing violence, threats, they're facing big tech companies that are actually um, not allowing them to do their campaigns because of their safety policies. So those safety policies that exist online are actually harming our activists, the activists that are doing the community work everywhere around the world. So these findings are very important because then with this information, we have the power to hold those big tech companies accountable for what they are doing and saying, you know what, those safety policies that you have are actually restraining the young people from doing their work in their communities. You're actually not helping us, you're harming us. So these are some of the examples. I think I'm like on, I think I'm getting to my time here. But I'll leave the resources on the chat, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me during our Q&A later. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of young people making changes, Yazid, I want to move on to you. As a young person, How has data value supported your work on data protection and catalyzing local action for creating a fairer data future?
Thank you so much, June. Can you confirm if you can hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. I am unable to on my video because I'm having trouble with my network. I've been going in and out. So amazing question. Just building on what Jamina said. Data values is really giving me the opportunity as a young person interested in data protection and as a data science myself that understand the intricacy and the value of data protection. It has given me this platform to learn more and to learn more about the people-centered part of data. It's not just about data processing it and doing other stuff. How do we ensure that people are at the center of this data we collect, how we use the data, and how we make decisions that affects them with this data. How much say do they have? Data value has really given me a fresher perspective by building my capacity in this regard. And more so, importantly, recently I implemented a project in a state in Nigeria called Kasana. Kasana State have been largely misrepresented in data, and people do not have say over how their data is being represented, and there is huge gap in data literacy and education generally in the state when it comes to how people just go into the communities and get data and report what they want without really these people they collect the data from don't have say. So data value give me this opportunity to lead support my project by sponsoring me and providing me with the capacity to host this one day workshop in Kasana where we train over 30 leaders of civil society organization on data product protection and how they can integrate data values into their work. We'll also engage policymakers because one of the key outcome of our workshop is a strategy document that was developed because we believe that can be used as a tool going forward to engage policymakers, and that was presented to policymakers in the state. And amazingly, we've started seeing some really good outcome from the presentation and engagement so far. And because there is a new government in the state, there is this um, move towards really realizing some of the recommendation in the strategy document, which is a big win for the project we did. And because of the commitment of the new administration in putting people at the center of data decision making. So data values has really given me this opportunity to bring this project into life. I've always worked in the government, I've worked in the civil society, so I have the share of experience, and that kind of broadened my understanding on the importance of integrating the data values into work. And by being an advocate on the data values campaign, my capacity was built in that regards, and I'm able to step down this training to fellow young people and also put it in my work and across other things I do. So that's how the data value is giving me the platform and opportunity, Jude. I will not take much of your time so the others can speak. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that the common thread between what you said and what Imet said is that for young people making change at a local level when it comes to data, they also face some sense of challenges and some sense of barriers. So I want to move on to Bipana. As a youth activist in data, what are some challenges or barriers that you've seen when it comes to data protection? And why is it important for young people to care about data and data use? And how can young people become more aware of the issues?
So I think as a young activist working with diverse population of young people from around the world, and more specifically, I'm so much drawn towards working with underprivileged and rural communities, especially. So I think one problem that comes in when tackling problems related to awareing young people about their rights and their duties related to advocating for data would definitely be the fact of digital divide. Mostly what happens is in rural areas, in underprivileged communities, young people or general population do not have this privilege of having accessible data, be it online or offline. So that really creates one parity or disparity among when we try to go into the community and kind of disseminate the information needed for, okay, this is what we should be doing in order to be aware about advocating for our rights in order to tackle, issues in the sector of data privacy or advocating for your own rights in relates to you need to have you need to have that knowledge, or you need to be aware enough to stand up for your data use. Right? So I think the most common problem that I have been seeing as a young activist would definitely be the fact of bringing young people together into the same platform, be it online or offline. So this whole movement of utilizing young people can be moved into a similar direction, with every one of us being involved together, be it young activists or any concerned stakeholders, government, keeping all these multi-dimension aspect into one plate is really difficult. And also another thing would be definitely the fact of having just difficulties or tackling difficulties when it comes to disseminating information on how can you exactly advocate or raise your voice in order to have that say on getting fair data for everyone. So that's another thing, because you have to be in every community. If there's not social media, or if you're not disseminating the information online, you have to be in the community, right? So for that, I think getting to every young person and motivating them is also another factor. Probably everyone is not made or born to be or inspired to be a young leader or kind of activist or advocate. I understand. So that thing is also kind of challenging when I have personally faced in my role or in my enthusiasm of being a young, youth activist. And I think, why is it important that young people should be aware or, aware about the fact that data, fair data for everyone is a thing. Many people even are not aware about this fact. So recently, I had this. I did this experiment in, the streets of Kathmandu, where we try to connect with diverse population based in Kathmandu, Nepal. We try to bring the street dialogues among them, questioning them, what exactly do you understand by data? This was a simple project that I would say pilot project that I conducted with some university students based in Nepal. So I was really amazed to get the outcome from it. First of all, even young people who have the idea what exactly data is are not so sure of or confident that, okay, this is data. So I think this one question among itself is, what exactly is data? To keep it simple, people just take it to next level. People think, okay, data might be something just connected to technology, or there's AI things, or these things which are not beyond our understanding. Most of them had that thought. So I think to keep it simple, data is information. Data is something that kind of relates or kind of it is incorporated around your life, be it wherever or wherever you are. So that was one simple understanding that we got to know from diverse sets of or diverse young population. And this shows why young people should be definitely drawn to this conversation of advocating, or at least understanding what is data in simple terms. So I think simplifying it is really necessary in order to bring young people to this conversation. And adding on to this, why they need to know about data as simple as that, because it is something which is definitely associated with their identity, how they govern themselves also, or even to know what's going on around them. If anyone is doing something, or even if like it comes to their personal identity, I would say social media is a great example of it. If you do not use the data properly there, then your privacy or your information might be used in an improper way, which definitely leads on to certain consequences we have seen examples of. So I think definitely specifically young people should be aware about this fact that data is a simple term which is incorporated into your life in many more terms, not to make it complicated. It is simple as that. Just want you to understand how it stands in your life and how you can move ahead with that as a young person. So I think in simple understanding or simple putting away these things in simple words is simplifying data and letting young people join this conversation as it is. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Now, finally, to Mayuri, I think that a lot of the themes that our previous speakers said so far is when it comes to, like as a data values advocate yourself, that is convenient for like young women and girls. What are some ideas or practical steps that the data values movement can take to ensure that the voices and the needs of young people are heard within the data and data protection?
Yeah. So first of all, greetings to all from India. And today, when I'm speaking on this global platform, I want you all to come to the Manipur, which is India's state, and come as an imagine what's happening in Manipur right now. Because when we are talking about data inclusion and data privacy, Manipur is facing internet shutdown because of the communal riots happening over there since few months. And as I'm speaking here, I feel very terrible when I think of my fellow sisters in Manipur who are from Kuki tribes or some other tribes which are considered as marginalized communities in Manipur. They are kept away from the world at the same moment we are all connected here. So that's why I wanted to make this point and take your attention to them. While government is shut about this and not is very much silent and not taking any action. So I want you all to understand that how it is difficult for women, and especially from women who come from layers of marginalization. It's difficult to have access to rights, and it's not just about internet or privacy, but also about basic human rights. So, and these all things are kept hidden from the world all these time. I have been working with young girls and women for last 3 years now, and being their convener, I would like to talk about uh, how we can make inclusion accessible for them, or how we can fund their inclusion to the data spaces, or where we are talking about data protection and their rights. So first thing I want to mention is funding for grassroots movements which are working in educating communities, because as Bipana said, it is very much important to educate young people about what is data, as they are not aware of it, being from very marginalized background. This is a part of our own value of democratizing data skills. So if there are grassroots organizations which are working in educating young people about data and inclusion of their data in the processes, then we should focus on more funding to them. And this will help them sustain longer to achieve expected goals and expected change. Also, funding communities should understand that local contexts are very different from the global context. So there are many hurdles which can't be taken on to paper, or there are many qualitative changes happening on ground which can't be quantified, or which can't be put into numbers. So we should think about new ideas and new methods to judge their achievements and understand how they are working. And funding these democratization of skills will help us get more young people into data processes. Another step we can take is to build international constituency and make it more stronger, to make governments work to collect inclusive data, because governments are mostly ignoring this point of inclusion. While when it comes to country like India, which is very diverse and has many people, representatives from many tribes and small castes and communities, it's very difficult to include them in all processes. So as an international constituency, we can be a pressure group on governments to do that. uh, and hence many voices can be heard and can come to the platforms such as our own platform. We can make spaces where people can reach and speak up. There are very few platforms such as data values community or UN platforms, as said by June. But it's harder for people coming from marginalized backgrounds, with the layers and with the intersections taking into consideration. It is very hard for them to reach such panels or such platforms. So we can make these platforms accessible for them, so that they can easily come to these spaces and speak about their own rights, and that will eliminate the part of appropriation done by many other people about their rights. So I want you all to think about some questions here, like, can we create more such spaces, and also can these spaces be more language inclusive than they are right now? Because whenever we think about any space, we need to know that English or some major mainstream languages are not just the languages people speak, but there are many other languages which should be considered, and we should work on localization of knowledge into these languages. So can we fund localization of knowledge as well, to bring those who aren't in the mainstream, and uh, they should be included in such processes? So let's think about that. So yeah, these are some ideas I wanted to put here to make these processes more inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mari. I think you raised up really good points, such as funding and language barriers, which are definitely conversations and support that needs to be given to this community. So to round things up for the panelists, I just want to ask you, all of y'all, like one common question. And since we are a bit tight on time, then maybe you could keep it to like 2 or 3 sentences. So the question is, any advice for young data change makers right here in the audience? So please, let's start from Jimena.
I would say don't be afraid to speak up and just voice what matters to you.
Thank you. Vipana.
I think it will be definitely start now. There's never a perfect timing when you start your advocacy. For me, it was data values, which just made me fantasize about, wow, these things that really work in this way. So I think just start now and see how the process goes. And there are a lot of amazing people that you would be meeting in the process itself, and learn and give back together and do together. So I would say start now. Yeah, thank you.
Mayuri.
I would say make integrated efforts, converge your all efforts together, because we need to think about duplication of efforts. We should avoid that, and we should make constituency of people who are doing similar work, and we should take it ahead together. Yeah.
And then Yazid.
Mine is just a reminder. Remember that data protection is a collective effort. And as young people, you can actively contribute to creating a safer digital environment for everyone. Stay informed, be proactive, and collaborate with others to ensure data values and privacy are respected and protected, and as well as integrated into your personal work and your organizational work. Thank you all.
Got it. So I just want to say thank you again for all sharing your insights and experiences. Now I'm going to pass it on to Vipana, who will facilitate the Q&A portion from the audience. So go ahead, Vipana.
Yeah, thank you so much, June. And thank you so much, everyone, for being such an amazing audience. Really had fun with interacting with the panelists itself. And so now is your chance to ask any questions or even share your own experience, what you think about the topic itself or the presentation that we had just now, or anything that the panelists have that might have intrigued, or like brought this one question in your mind, oh, wow, this is interesting, or you want to be even more clear about this. So now is your chance. Please raise your hand, and I will take it forward. We have really, really little amount of time for this, but we do not want to miss the chance. So I have Kanika, who has raised her hand first, and we'll go with, after Kanika, we'll go with Pri. Kanika, yeah, over to you.
Hello, hi. I just wanted to ask that this is such a authentic discussion and like really covers all aspects that we usually think about, but this is so missing when we talk about data in big techs, or completely missing when we talk about what data projects philanthropics are funding. Why is that the case? Why do we see such a big gap between where massive funding, and I'm talking about millions, is going on data related topics versus all these topics which actually cover all nuance related to marginalization and everything else?
Thank you, Kanika. So any of our panelists would want to go with this question? Anyone?
Uh,
Can I
so
get the question again, just to be clear?
Sure, yes. So there's like a lot of conversation around data that happens in big techs and philanthropic ecosystems. And there's a lot of funding dedicated to data protection, data risks, data values at that level. Why do they miss out on real aspects like youth, gender, marginalization, layers of language related conversations? Like, why is there a gap and what can be really done about it? Really curious on it. But has been a great discussion. Thanks.
okay, Yazid, you wanna answer this question?
You can go on, then I'll jump in.
Okay, so as I said in my answer, these all philanthropists or funding communities are sitting on the top, and grassroots realities are really different, and they fail to understand these realities. And this is also about how we calculate the success of any project or any effort we are taking in the communities. And these indicators are moreover quantitative indicators, and these indicators are being numbers. They miss the nuances or qualitative data from the grassroots. And that's the biggest reason why funding agencies want to get a larger impact in numbers or in number of beneficiaries than trying to reach the or trying to collect the data about qualitative change happening in the communities. That's what my experience is with these funding communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayuri. So I think I would love to move to Preem. Yeah, over to you, Preem.
Sure, thank you very much for a very interactive, very insightful discussion from the panelists. So my name is Prem Rajasurang. I'm from the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. And one of the problems that we are facing is the inclusion, right? And absolutely, it's not only about the data, but it's about the people behind the data as well. And many stories are lacking behind. And I would like to ask a question about the inclusion of people with disabilities and marginalized community as well, because people with disability in my country, in Thailand, don't have enough access to accessible information, accessible data, and even about data about themselves. We're really lacking behind in many countries, and also happening in many countries in Asia Pacific on the region. And how could we better serve about the inclusion of the people and the protection of the data about themselves and improve their quality of life? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Preem. Any of our panelists would love to take this question?
Okay, let me go then. Thank you so much for that wonderful question. And I can, from people I've worked with in from those kind of communities, I can tell you that that's not only particularly in your country issue of lack of inclusion in data for marginalized communities and people living with disabilities is a global issue. And one of the things I think it can be done is to review state policies when it comes to data, because that's led to improper resource allocation. That's led to improper resource allocation and programming for them, which also result to not them not having a good livelihood and standards and stuff like that. So I think it's really important government design data system. I think that's what one of the things Data Valley is talking about. It's talking about the inclusion, and that's why it's important we tell our government, we advocate as young people that these people need to be included. Their data need to be protected as well, because it will go a long way in helping the government at national and state level when it comes to designing program and resource allocation. We need to see data beyond the figures and think about people behind the data. How do we make sure that this data is people centered? And how are we going to make sure that there is a full representation of these people? And that's where the thought about building people capacity to shape how they are represented in data. I think governments across level need to invest hugely in building capacities of people within these communities. Probably the data around that, but they are not as effective, or they are not enough, or they are not accessible by the state government. So there is need for enhanced or capacity strengthening for people within this community to know what they to know about their data, how it can be protected, and how the state itself or the government can use it for effective decision making and ensure their inclusion in across all sectors in the state. Thank you.
I also wanted to say something really quick about this. Um, just very, very quickly, I wanted to say we need to make sure that in our projects and in everything that we do, we are also including people with disabilities and people from from rural or vulnerable communities, to make sure that they can advocate for themselves, because we don't want to do the same mistakes of trying to speak for someone else. So just making sure that we're also including those voices in any work that we do, to make sure that they can advocate for their own issues. Just wanted to add that very quick.
Okay, it looks like Ipana lost connection. So I think that we could wrap up this section of the Q&A and then move on to the final section. So now we're gonna do some campaign opportunities announcements. So a couple of events that's within our orbit. So first, community meetings. So we're gonna host the next Data Values community meeting that's gonna be in September. And so this session will focus on getting your input and feedback on what the next iteration of the Data Values campaign should focus on. So if you have any topical ideas, like you would like to host another community meeting, please reach out to Fudumo. She is one of our coordinators working at the Data Values project at this email. Second, Data Values Bootcamp. So we're gonna host a virtual boot camp called the Data Village Bootcamp for during the 3 days. We're gonna focus on the data values and like give you these kind of like practical advocacy and data skills that you need. So the link to register is on the chat. It's from July 31st to August 2nd, so it's gonna happen in a couple of weeks. So it's gonna be like something very similar to this, where you're gonna have various speakers and various workshops focusing on data advocacy and data literacy skills. So please sign up, and Padumu just added the link in the chat. Third, Festival de Datos. So registration to attend the Data Fest is still open. So the festival aims to strengthen data communities and our collective ability to unlock the value of data for all, as we strive to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you're interested about using data and technology to protect the environment, to improve people's health and well-being, and achieve equality in all forms, then please check out our data festival that's going to be happening. So you could visit the website for more information on how to sign up. And we're very excited to host this. And then finally, we have a revamped social media toolkit. So use and share our new visual social media toolkit to help amplify our collective efforts in driving the campaign and manifest it forward. We will recirculate the toolkit in the follow-up email. And yes, that's all for today. There's a lot of links in the chat, so please give them a look. Data Values Bootcamp, the Festival de Datos, and thank you very much. If you have any other questions, please use the session feedback form that's popped up right now to give us good feedback, and reach out to Fidumo for any questions or suggestions or opportunities or anything you feel is relevant. I just want to say thank you again for attending this event. It was a pleasure meeting y'all, and have a good day, have a good night or afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for organizing the event. Very fruitful and engaging. Thank you. Bye-bye.